Well, hi everybody, Bill here. So glad to be starting off a new year with you. Thanks for subscribing and continuing to support my channel. I sure appreciate it. Hey, in this video, I'm going to replace an outdoor water hydrant. It freezes in the winter, blows water out the top. I don't think it was put in right. It's 30 years old, so we're going to dig it up today and see what's going on. The arrows there show the area that we're going to saw out today and remove that asphalt before we dig. I went to the rental yard and rented this saw. A couple of young bucks over there loaded up for me, and I was able to use the forks like you saw there earlier to unload it. It sure is easy. One thing you'll notice here, I've got my wife spraying water on the cutting wheel because that tank on the rear end of the saw was broken. I didn't catch that at the rental store, so we had to put the water on it that way, and it worked just fine. And in all fairness, the rental yard did knock off a few bucks. And I got the job done, not as much as I wanted to, but the rental price was fair. There's no need to locate underground utilities here. The only line that I'm aware of that comes through here is the telephone line. It's been abandoned. We're going to hit that a little bit later, and I'll show you what that's about. I ran fiber optics into my property, and now all the copper phone line that's in the ground is no longer needed. All right, I left this in the video here to show you how important it is to have another spotter. While I'm sawing back there right here, I can't see the rear. I can't see the rear of the blade. So what I'm doing is pulling that blade into that concrete patch. I've got conduit in there. I ran some surfaces from my house over to the garage in a conduit line, and I saw it into that there a little bit. I should have stopped earlier, but I could not see it. So there, I'm pointing it out right there. See how far I went into that? Conduit is underneath the concrete, and I don't expect I'm going to have any problems. And spoiler alert, when we pull out the blacktop in that, I didn't get into the conduit whatsoever. And next summer, I'm going to put a couple-inch overlay over all this asphalt, including that concrete trench there. So cosmetically wise, it's not going to hurt a thing. My plan here is to saw it in a small slab so I can lift it out with the backhoe. So I'm going to saw it into a checkerboard pattern. Here I'm sawing on both sides of the water pipe, and I'll take those out by hand. All right, so let's get this thing reloaded and back to the rental yard. I was able to do that under the 4-hour rental period, so that works. That sure makes loading and unloading easier as I get older. I'm sure everybody knows that. All right, I'm going to chip up the blacktop edge here so I can get the backhoe teeth under that, and then I hope I just can pivot that and pull that slab up and out of there. Oh, and I pointed that out. The next video is going to show you how I made these rubber street pads for the backhoe so it wouldn't slide. I think I've got 15 or 20 bucks in that, so you'll want to see that on the next video. Well, that didn't work with a darn, did it? So I thought, well, I'll just make the gap a little bit bigger, and maybe I can get the backhoe in there that way. Well, that failed too. So I went ahead and used a crowbar and got under there and pried it up, and then just pulled it out of there, kind of bullied it out of there, you know, and then put it on the pallets. What I'm demonstrating here is as I take the slabs out, I put them on several pallets. Then I can haul them off to my disposal area. All right, so I'll show you how I slide the forks underneath this slab near that vertical post. And you're going to hear my wife let out a... Right there. She thought, I think she thinks that pipe's full of water, and it's going to... If I would bend it, it would squirt water in the air like the cartoon shows. But the water is shut off. There's no risk. And it goes down and ties into a poly line, so I'm not worried about bending that at all. So I got out the pickaxe there and had to break that into a couple of sections, and that was easy to break up, and then I hauled those off. Here's a little better demonstration now of how I thought it was going to work. I got an opening there. Now I can drop the forks down underneath that, and being careful not to go underneath the concrete slab there, I just went into the asphalt and pulled them up. So that worked out pretty good. So I'm just going to continue stacking all this asphalt slabs on top of my pallets. If you haven't got a tractor or the forks yet, get yourself a big pile of pallets because you won't believe how much you're going to use them. You can generally find them free for the hauling. Yeah, I've had good luck finding them that way. Alright, so here's the last piece. Coming out of there real nice. You know, except for that beginning there, I kind of struggled with figuring out how to do it. This project's turned out pretty nice. What I like about this, I've got a nice sharp edge there, so when I put the asphalt in there, it'll have a nice connection, a nice butt joint with the old. Alright, here's the last two pieces out of there, and let's get moving on. Alright, confirming the water shut off, and we're ready to go. Alright, I've got the stabilizers down, I've got the parking brake set, and my rear tires are on the ground. Now, before you send me emails telling me this is wrong, I have the operator's manual for the 270V backhoe here from John Deere. And on page 35-4, it says, do not raise the tractor with the backhoe stabilizers. The stabilizers are not outriggers. And I'm going to put another video in here that you can see a set of outriggers. So they're not outriggers, they're stabilizers, and John Deere says they will not hold the tractor, or they're not, this is my words, they're not designed to hold the tractor off the ground. So keep that in mind when you operate yours. Here I'm on asphalt, and the parking brake set, tires are on the ground, stabilizers are on the ground with the street pads, and watch throughout the video, I'm not getting a whole lot of movement. Really happy with this advice. Alright, so I wanted to pull the mechanical thumb up, which I did. And what I'm doing here right now is measuring the dipper stick in the bucket, so I have a reference of how deep I am when I'm digging. And I'm hoping we'll see the bottom of that hydrant at about 4 feet. Hey, if you like the video, I'd sure appreciate you smashing that thumbs up indicator there on your computer or phone. Helps me out a lot with YouTube and helps me grow. I'd really be grateful if you would subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. We're going to run into the phone line here, the abandoned phone line here pretty soon. It's going to be running right about in there on that side of the pipe, as I recall. I'm telling my wife here to kind of keep an eye open for a copper line. She's a little confused. I think she's thinking if it's a copper water line, it's just a copper wire. I ran a conduit line from my house to the garage for many reasons. And if you watch 123, you'll see the benefits of doing that. That's what's underneath that concrete slab there is conduit with wires inside of it. I'll put a link below in the description to that. Well, there's the phone wires that we thought we would hit, and we did. And it's no big deal. They're dead and abandoned, and we're just going to move on and keep digging. All right, while we're digging here, hey, I wanted to say hi to John, and he checked in from Wick, Scotland. It's on the very northern part of Scotland, and I've actually been there. John bought a 5 Series tractor. He's going to build his own home there on a large plot of land he recently purchased. So good luck on your project, John. While I was in Wick, I got to tour a Scotch distillery. It's very interesting. That was about 20 years ago. And I got thinking, the Scotch they made then 20 years ago is probably just now available for sale. Isn't that incredible? They got to keep their product for 15 or 20 years before they can sell it. I also got to go over to St. Andrew's Golf Course. So it was a great trip. If you ever have a chance to go there, I highly recommend it. Now, as I'm digging along here, there's 2 things I want to be aware of. I don't want to undermine the blacktop, and I don't want to undermine the garage slab. So I'm going to keep some distance between those two, and I'll show you how I do that here in a minute.
This part goes.
My wife's pointing out to me that she thinks the water line is, I'm starting to get close to the water line. I hope not, because I'm not very deep. So I got the shovel out, and I quickly put an end to this. This is ridiculous. Once you own a backhoe, trying to run this shovel and all the rock and clay I have on my ground, forget it. I've censored out the language here and me throwing the shovel over the hillside. So let's get back on the tractor and get something done. So to protect that slab and asphalt from being undermined, here's what I do. I lower the teeth into the ground, and then I slowly retract the dipper stick just a little bit while curling the bucket. And then I'll jiggle that bucket to get the loose soil into the bucket. I have good luck planting trees this way. It's a deeper hole than it is a longer hole. Now watch, I'll just turn it, and then a couple shakes, and so it allows me to dig deep and not have a big trench open. You might want to try that, but it sure works good for me. I see a lot of questions on Facebook and that, should a person buy a backhoe? And for me personally, it's been a terrific decision. I'm going to do a backhoe collage video and show you the dozens and dozens of projects I've used the backhoe for, so it's penciling out quite nicely. Well, we're getting real close here. My wife thought she saw something. She kind of zoomed in on it. We're starting to find some drain tile now. There's a close look at it. And that's after the elbow, and that's bringing it upward. So I'm guessing we're within a foot or so now of finding the bottom. Would you agree with me that operating a backhoe is oddly satisfying? I enjoy being able to open a hole up quickly, bring out big mounds of dirt and rock. I guess because you know just how hard it would be doing it with a pickaxe and a shovel, right? Let me know your thoughts. I really enjoy operating the backhoe. The loader and the backhoe and everything else implement-wise, I sure enjoy the backhoe. I bet you do too. Hey, I'm trying to get to 10,000 subscribers this year. I sure would appreciate you'd subscribe, and I promise I won't bug you and you're not signing up for anything. So hit that subscribe button, and I get a video out about once a month. All right, we're getting pretty close here now.
Oh, I see the pipe. I see the pipe. Right there. Right there.
Oh, I see it. I see the drain tile.
Yeah.
Eureka! We found it. Let's take a closer look at it here. I was expecting this to be in mud and clay and not encased very nice, but I kind of learned differently. They put it in drain tile. But I want to explore why this thing's draining so slowly. And I think that's causing it to freeze because the pipe just doesn't get rid of that water quick enough when we use it in the winter. So there it is. And the drain tile, I cut that drain tile off so you could see it. So they did put it in drain tile all the way up and to about a foot up the pipe. But there's no thermal breaks.
42 inches.
Yeah, 42. So that's kind of marginal for this area. So I turned the water back on, and we're going to fill that pipe up. We're going to run it out the hose, and we're going to shut it off. And let's see how fast it drains.
Turn it off.
You hear that?
Yeah, look at that. That's about draining like a guy my age with prostate problems. So it should be shooting out of there like when we were 20 years old, right, guys? And that's dribbling so slow. I know now that's why that pipe's freezing, I'll bet. I use this pipe when it's 20 and 30 below, but I've always had to wrap it with insulation tape, and even then it froze. And it makes sense that if the water can't get out of there quick enough, after being used several times a day, it probably just freezes up. All right, before we go to the hardware store and get a new hydrant, I wanted to show you how I hauled the asphalt slabs away. I just used a ratchet strap to tie the pallet to the fork fence, and then the slab slid right off. All right, here we are at the farm store. This is how the replacements look. Look on the cover for the buried depth and then the height after being buried. This one reads the overall length is 33 inches plus the buried depth, and the buried depth is stenciled on the pipe. So I grabbed a new connection piece and some stainless steel clamps, and we're all ready to go home and fix this thing. All right, I disconnected the clamp, and it came right off. If it wouldn't have, I would have just cut that poly hose and got that out of there. Here it is installed. I didn't get the video of actually doing it, but I'm going to explain to you how I got to this point. What you're seeing here is a bucket filled with 1-inch gravel. That new water hydrant is in that bucket wrapped with 2-inch foam, and then 1-inch clean gravel is around the bucket, and the bucket is also sitting on a piece of 1-inch foam. Now, before I did this, I got a bucket and I drilled it full of holes. So here's what I'm demonstrating here. The bottom was full of holes, and I drilled holes all in the side. Now where the water line was going to come in the side of the bucket, I drilled a great big wide hole right there. That way that line's going to come into the bucket right there, and that's going to reconnect to my new hydrant. That's what I'm showing here with the pliers. That hydrant goes in that bucket, makes a connection right there, re-clamp it with a stainless steel clamp, and then I filled that with 1-inch clean. But before I did that, I put a 2-inch piece of foam on the bottom, sat the bucket on top of that, so that's one thermal break, so frost doesn't come up from below it and work its way up to freeze it. I also wrapped the pipe in 2-inch foam. Then I filled the gap between the pipe and the foam with expandable foam. Keep it in mind, I didn't want to put that hose too deep and seal the drain. So I stuck it about halfway down there and then just brought it up and filled that up. That's going to be a real good barrier for frost. So now I've got protection from the frost coming around it and underneath it. I also put my ear against the pipe there before, and I could hear the water hitting the bucket. So it kind of confirmed my blue insulation was high enough, my insulation didn't block it, and I could hear it hitting the bucket with force. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is I got a couple of magnetic levels here. My wife's going to hold that while I put in old fill on top of a 2-inch piece of foam. Did you notice I put that 2-inch foam on top of my 1-inch clean gravel? All right, let's stop the video a minute. I want to be clear. I'm using 2-inch foam because it gives me excellent thermal break when you can't add extra soil. So while I was sitting at that 42-inch, which is kind of marginal, don't take my word for it. Go online. This foam is about a R10, and average soil ranges from 0.25 to 1 R per inch at 20% moisture. Let's just use round numbers. So basically, I have put 10 inches more of soil on this, the equivalent of 10 inches or more of soil by using the foam. I'm adding an R10, and that would have taken 10 inches of soil to do the same thing. So now instead of 42 inches, it's 52 inches in theory deep and protected. 52 inches of frost protection. So I really don't think this is going to freeze. And I'm going to show you at the end it doesn't. I'll prove it to you. I used the existing clay and rock mixture because it really firmed that pipe up. If I had put 1-inch clean around it all the way up, it would have been pretty wiggly, but it really got firm. Now to finish off my insulation barriers, I put a 10-inch piece of drain tile around the pipe that's coming up out of the ground, and I filled that with the remaining foam that I have. Now I realize that it's going to expand and go over top like it is here, but that's fine. I'll saw that off with a Sawzall. All right, now I'm going to fill up the last 10 or 12 inches with 1-inch clean. I need a couple loads of 1-inch clean in another area of my lot, so I'm going to use the remote control of the trailer and see how this is going to work. I'm going to pull up to it, put my bucket under there. Now I'm going to tip the trailer up using that remote control key I have, and I'll dump it into the loader and then run up the hill, dump it off, and then repeat a few times. The reason I'm not dumping it up on top near the project is I want to put my extra gravel down here. I'm just trying not to touch the gravel twice. Whatever's left over I'm dumping right here, and I'm going to spread out. So far, looks like a pretty good idea, right? All right, so we're going to dump it in here, and I'm going to dump it in high because over the summer it's going to settle. And then when we come in to asphalt it, we can take some out. Although I will tell you, I've been using it now for a few months, and I like the fact the gravel's there because if my bucket overflows, it just drains away and I don't have a wet spot near my hydrant. I might not asphalt that. What do you think? So here it is as we're wrapping it up. Now I don't know if the UVs will hurt that foam or not. So I cut it off with a Sawzall, cut this 10-inch cap in half, and put it on top and secured it with a couple of ties. Well, before we check out the project results in the middle of winter, I missed a bunch of shout-outs this month. I'll try to get to those next month. Thanks, as always, for checking in where you're watching from. I sure appreciate it. All right, let's check our work. It's 9 below. Let's see how it works. Wind chill looks like 37 below, and we've had about a week of this. Voila, it works. So I'm really comfortable. Hey, the project cost me about $200. I'm comfortable saying the tractor saved me $700 doing it myself. Have a great month, everybody. Be kind to each other. Consider subscribing, and I'll talk with you soon. So long.